What I ought to do is just take a couple minutes, take you through the model and how it works first. And so that when we go to plug in projects and purchases, then you can see how the impacts are being measured. We do everything graphically. I know this is a very convoluted page right here, but this is where I plug in all of the projects and purchases, any assumptions we want to make, that's all going to get put in here. And you will get to dictate to me. You can say, Mike, change that project from 2013 to 2018. You might say, change the dollar amount of the project. You might say, change the revenue stream. You know, don't use taxes, use water rates instead, or special assessments, and those sorts of things. So we can plug that all in here. The assumptions are pretty much this top half of the page. These will be, each column is a project and purchase. So we'll plug in the amount of the project in today's dollars. Now, depending on what year I plug in down here, that will increase the price of the project, because the model's assuming there's a inflation factor, that costs will only go up each year it go by. And right now, I think I have a 5% inflation factor. If you think that's too high, we'll change that to whatever you want, but I like to be high. We can change whether it's a cash project, a borrowed project like bond issues, or it could be sort of a combination. If it is borrowed, how many years, what interest rate do we think we'll get? If I scroll down, if we use cash, what fund is the source of the cash? If we borrow, what revenue stream are we going to use? So in this particular case, I got 20% assessments, 25% water and sewer, and then 30% on taxes, so forth. So all of these numbers can be changed, and they'll all have an impact on the graphs that I'm about to show you. But before we plug anything into the machine, let's just see where we're headed if we do absolutely nothing other than pay for what we have today. We know what bonds are outstanding already. We know what level of operations we spend money on, that sort of thing. So let's just kind of pay for our stuff going into the future and see what happens. Now, this is a tax rate page. You can see there's two colors here. The green portion of the tax rate is that part of the levy that's not associated with debt. I'll call it operations levy. But, you know, your library levy, your general fund levy, anything like that is in the green. The yellow would be the levy you have associated with bonds, debt, right? Or your contract for deed, for instance, on the property. But notice here, going in from 2011 to 2012, that huge spike in the tax rate. That is not due to, I mean, a little bit of it is due to the preliminary levy that you've set so far, which had, what, a 4 or 5% increase, something like that?
4.7.
Almost all of that is due to the fact that there's a new law in place, this market value homestead exclusion. You've probably read about it. And that's causing your tax base to go down. So even if you kept your levy exactly where it is today and didn't increase it a dime, you would still see your 2012 tax rate jump. Okay? Now, the good news is to residents that their taxable values for next year will be reduced. Okay? The state's come up with a formula that will get applied to every single house. Your county assessor's working on that as we speak. So that even though the tax rate goes up, which would usually make you think, oh, huge tax increase, it's going to be offset by a decrease in their value. So it might work out to be a bit of a wash, with the exception being non-single family homestead property like commercial. They're going to get hit because the commercial properties don't have a market value adjustment. So they have their current market value as if nothing happened, plus they're going to pay that bump in the tax rate. Okay? Now, this is not unique to Rushford. This is a dynamic that's true to every single city in Minnesota. Okay? Alright, so it bumps up. Now, notice here in 2014 to 2015, that goes back down. That's because you have some levies with some existing debt that go offline. So, when that year rolls around, you could either drop your levy and drop the tax rate, or you could, if your goal was to have a flat tax rate, that would be a good time to do more projects so that it stays flat. See what I mean? But you'll see when we do add projects and purchases, if there are any new levies associated with that, you'll see it red, it'll turn red up here, and you can see how much things will go up or down. But that's the tax rate page. Oh, I'm also making the assumption that your operational spending, that you're spending on plowing, police protection, wages, everything like that, is gonna go up every year because prices go up, but you're going to discipline yourselves to not increase operational spending at a pace greater than which your tax base grows. Alright? So for instance, let's say your tax base, let's say your spending was outpacing your tax base. See how the green is going up? And that's eating into our capacity to do new projects in the future. Conversely, if you were a high growth city, you can see it would go down, which would create even greater capacity. So growing cities, that's the advantage they have, is growing cities get more capacity as each year goes by to do new things. But for now, let's just stick with an even spending to tax base growth ratio, and then if you want to change it, when we get to that part, we'll let you do whatever you want. Okay, this graph has to do with a water bill, and it measures what a water bill would be in a month if you used 5,000 gallons of water. And right now you're a little over $40 a month. The model, even though we haven't added any new water projects or anything like that, the model is already calling for a rate increase in 2012. The good news is you've already scheduled one. It's already on the books to happen, okay? Assuming you approve it when it comes time.